hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
The City of Barrie acknowledges the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, which include the Odawa, Ojibwe, Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge the Wendat Nation Huron, who occupied these lands prior to the middle of the 17th century. We're dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land. We're committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. You may be seated. Before we get started tonight and we'll begin by embarrassing somebody, but it's a good embarrassment, and we'd like to congratulate Jeff Schmidt on being appointed as the City of Barrie's new General Manager of Community and Corporate Services. So welcome back to Barrie, Jeff, who was with us a while ago and is, like a prodigal son, has made his way home. Jeff joins after previously holding progressive leadership titles for the Township of Springwater, including most recently being the Chief Administrative Officer. And having worked at the City of Barrie from 2005 to 10, progressing from budget analyst to manager of financial policy and performance, Jeff is no stranger to our organization. Jeff holds the Chartered Professional Accounting designation and brings over 2 decades worth of experience in municipal governance and finance. Welcome back again, Jeff, and we congratulate you on your appointment to this incredibly important position here in the City of Barrie. We're going to go through to the confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the City Council meeting from January 15th, 2025 have been circulated. That's the first item on the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections that members of Council would like to propose? Seeing none, they are adopted as printed. We have one awards and recognition ceremony tonight, and that is for the Maple Ridge Seniors Girls Basketball Team on winning the 2024 OFSA Girls AAA Basketball Championship. Congratulations. And on behalf of City Council, I'd like to obviously congratulate our senior girls team and invite up Mike Tuddy, coach, to the podium to say a few words about the season and also to present certificates. So I'll meet you over there. And I also, just as a little recognition, because I was paying attention to this because of Councillor Negussi, Maple Ridge also received very good grades, if you will, in a recent report that was put out by a national think tank. And so also want to recognize that. Congratulations, if you can take that back to the school as well.
Yeah, sure. I don't mind. Yeah. Yeah. We're good to go. All right. Yeah. So what a year. So Mike Tuddy's the guy up here. He was too scared to come up, so he had to get the new guy to come up here and speak on his behalf. But this was an amazing. So just going back to the senior girls here, like, this was an amazing year in terms of basketball achievement, academic achievement, like what was just mentioned. But what was really good about being a part of this group and being part of the experience was, I think the girls got a really good experience and they got some acknowledgement for the effort and the time and the dedication that they've put into themselves and trying to be as good at something as they possibly can be. Because this has been a long time coming for a lot of them. There's still a lot more basketball left in their career. There's still obviously a lot more school left in their career. So having those two accomplishments, it's a nice way to get acknowledged, but it's also a good motivator to keep pushing forward and keep trying to be as good as you can at something. I think it really just comes down to that. So on behalf of your head coach, congratulations, ladies. It's well deserved, and looking forward to going through the process again next year. Perfect. Okay. All right, so first to receive the certificate of recognition, I'm going to call down Morgan Catling. Come on down. Sure, yeah, thank you. Okay, and the next is going to be Riley Tuddy. Come on up, Riley.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, and next is going to be Kira Pappas. Come on up, Kira.
Thank you.
Next is Ashlyn Macy. Reese Burley, come on up. Matilda Wiley, come on up. Avery Miles. Cecily Ward Robbins. So unfortunately, we have three that are leaving our program this year. So we have 3 grade 12s that will be graduating at the end of this year. So first, I'm going to call up Anaya Hitchman. And the last one that is here, we have one that's away today, but Azalea Duncan, come on up. And last but not least, one of the coaches as part of this program, Mike Tuddy, come on up. Yeah, so he's all nervous and scared, but awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Just before you go, I know it's going to be a little bit more difficult maybe to do a picture with an injured team member, but also we just want to say thank you to the coaches because obviously this doesn't happen without you, support of the parents, but definitely the coaching and the lasting impact you're going to have on young people's lives. So thank you so much for doing that in our community as well. Now, I know with the scholarly approach over at Maple Ridge, you want to stay for the rest of the evening, but I'm sure there's homework you have to go do, so feel free to exit and you don't have to stay for the budget. We'll just give you a couple moments to go now. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, members of council, we're going to get back into the agenda. We're going to move into number 8, which is deputations on committee reports, because number 7 has no items this evening. There are 2 deputation requests and 2 emergency requests from Daisy Oliveros and Ash Pinot regarding motion 25G015 of the general committee report dated January 22nd, 2025, concerning the 2025 business plan and budget for service partners. For the deputation requests received after the printing of the agenda, a vote in favor by a majority of council is required in order for the emergency deputation to proceed. So I'll ask for all those in favor of allowing the emergency deputations to proceed, please put up your hand. And it is approved unanimously. So we're going to go through it in the order that they came in. So Mr. Spears, we're going to start with you with your deputation. So please do come up to the microphone. I'll just note that you know this already, but not everyone does. There's 5 minutes per speaking. There'll be a timer that you'll be able to see as well, Mr. Spears. And when you start speaking, the timer will begin.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm here this evening to once again ask you to vote against this year's Barrie Police Service budget. I want to spend my allotted time to explain why policing is nothing more than a discriminatory and violent method of control, and why further investments in policing are detrimental to our community. It's taken for granted that council would consider public safety to be a priority. However, I think decisions made by all of you here over the years, as well as those made by previous councils, demonstrates a clear contradiction that is harming people and making our community less safe. Evidence shows that higher police budgets do not necessarily lead to safer communities. Instead, they often perpetuate systemic inequalities, divert resources from more effective solutions, and fail to address the root causes of crime. Now, I'm not naive. I've been here before. There's little chance that you won't approve the police budget this evening, but I'm not one to give up on an issue that I believe strongly in. So let me outline 3 key reasons why increasing the police budget is the wrong approach. First, over-policing harms communities. Higher police budgets lead to increased policing in marginalized neighborhoods. In the case of Barrie, this means low-income areas and other places where vulnerable populations generally congregate. Research consistently shows that over-policing results in a disproportionate surveillance, harassment, and violence against many members of our community. This creates a climate of fear and mistrust, eroding any relationship between law enforcement and the people they claim to serve. Instead of fostering safety, policing deepens systemic inequalities and perpetuates cycles of harm. Rather than being treated with compassion or connected to services, people experiencing homelessness or struggling with some type of substance use or addiction are frequently met with hostility and aggression by police. Relying on them to manage these issues prioritizes punishment over care and reflects a systemic failure to provide things like adequate housing and social supports. Second, police are not equipped to address the root causes of crime. Crime is a symptom of deeper societal issues such as poverty, lack of affordable housing, mental health challenges, and inadequate access to services and employment opportunities. Police are not trained or equipped to address these root causes. Yet, year after year, we see the police budget in Barrie grow, while social services, mental health programs, transit, the library, and other community initiatives remain badly underfunded. For example, studies show that investing in truly affordable public housing reduces homelessness and related crimes. Yet, so many people in Barrie cannot find adequate housing. Many more live rough on our streets. By prioritizing police budgets over proven solutions, we are choosing a reactive approach over a proactive one. We are choosing violent encampment evictions over creating accessible shelter spaces for everyone who needs them. Third, higher police budgets divert resources from what works. Every dollar allocated to the police budget is a dollar taken away from programs that could have a far greater impact on community well-being. If we were to redirect the millions of dollars that now go to Barrie Police towards providing things like housing, more shelter spaces, food programs, mental health supports, better transit, a supervised consumption site, or other solutions for the toxic drug crisis, etc., there would be less need for the police in the first place. As a Marxist, I use facts to find the truth. Material conditions and material realities guide my outlook. The material reality before us tonight is the fact that the police do not prevent crime, and giving them more money will not make our community safer. But we know for a fact that investing in people and what they need will. Therefore, I ask this of you. Instead of approving this budget, demand a minimum 10% cut and an immediate hiring freeze by the police. Commit to transferring city funding away from the police and into programs that help the unhoused and are most vulnerable. This should be followed by a period of civilianization of some police functions after comprehensive engagement and consultation with community groups, then the offloading of more core police responsibilities to the municipality or other civilian agencies. Instead of pouring more money into policing, we need to reimagine public safety. This means reallocating resources to address the root causes of crime, investing in community building initiatives, and ensuring that everyone has access to the supports they need. It means creating a new system where police are not the default response to every social issue. Higher police budgets are not the answer to creating a safer community. Policing is a plague that perpetuates harm.
Thank you, Mr. Spears. I appreciate your presentation this evening. And I'm sorry, we're going to have to keep on moving. Are there any questions for Mr. Spears? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions at this point, so I'm going to move on to the next, which is Ms. Caitlin Baldwin. The microphone, once you start speaking, is yours, and that's when they'll start the 5 minutes for you as well. Okay. Welcome to council.
Oh, sorry, when I start speaking.
Sorry, I'm gonna, there's two in the audience. I just need to highlight this. In the council chambers, we don't have hats. Hats are not to be worn in the council chambers.
So I have a concussion. I'm really triggered by bright lights, which is why I have
Okay,
it.
understood. I'll completely accept that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. On January 3rd of this year, a Black woman was tackled and pinned to the ground by 3 policemen for trying to steal $7 worth of sushi. On October 25th of 2024, a Muslim woman and an Indigenous woman were both dragged to the ground and forcefully detained by 3 officers while at a police brutality protest. On September 8th of 2024, a Mi'kmaq man and father named Iggy Dadam was tased, shot 3 times, and killed by police who were responding to a mental health wellness check. And on August 30th, 2024, a 15-year-old boy, Haas Lightning, was shot and killed by police after calling 911 for help. These are not news headlines from the US, and with respect to your land acknowledgement at the start of today, this man and child were 2 of 6 Indigenous people killed by police in Canada over the span of 11 days last year. I could speak endlessly about my concerns about the Barrie Police, the fact that our citizens have been held at gunpoint when they were suicidal, the number of officers placed on paid leave when faced with domestic violence charges or DUIs, the fact that officers who sit at construction zones get paid overtime for additional taxpayer money outside of this proposed $72 million budget. That fuels my emotion here for sure, but this is a much bigger discussion. The police force in Barrie is being used as a catch-all to address dozens of different issues in Barrie, including housing, mental health, relational issues, poverty, and that is not their job. $72.24 million breaks down to $197,917 per day. And if following 2024, 98% of that budget goes to salaries and benefits. Do you agree, City Council, that on every day of the year, $200,000 worth of crime happens? For context, that daily cost also equates to 1 day in free social housing for 29,699 people, a shelter bed for 3,073 people, a free therapy session for 1,979 people, an overnight stay in the hospital for 544 people, and a day's worth of groceries for 19,791 people. Let me reiterate, this budget suggests that 1 day of work from the Barrie Police Force is worth the same amount of money as a shelter housing 3,000 people. I know that our opposition alone may feel like a threat to something that you all care about. Maybe it's tradition or safety or something else that you want to protect. So I want to ask each of you to take a moment and reflect on what values are at play for you here. What is the thing that you're trying to protect or hold on to with this budget increase, and what are you afraid of losing? If you were to ask me about my values as a therapist, I'd show you through my work that I care deeply about safety, autonomy of all people, health, belonging, and ultimately survival. And I imagine I'm on the same page as many of you here about those things. But I want to make it clear that those fears you may have of what we'd lose without this budget, safety, community, peace, quality of life, we have already lost it. This is evidenced by the fact that I've worked with a man who lost his business, wife, and home after a major car accident, and now unhoused, he is trapped in a cycle of fentanyl use to manage the cold weather as a homeless person. I've worked with a woman who was trapped in an abusive relationship for years because she couldn't afford housing and childcare on her own. I've worked with someone who is chronically suicidal because they work as hard as they can and still live paycheck to paycheck. I work with people like this every day. And even being disabled from a concussion for this past year, I am one of these people. City Council, I ask you, would there be as many police calls to the Busby Center or Salvation Army if shelters were resourced with enough well-trained staff, enough space, beds, toiletries, and food? Would there be as many calls to police for domestic violence if victims were no longer trapped in abusive relationships because they could easily access housing and childcare? Would police be called for wellness checks as often if people had alternative and effective mental health supports that were easy to access? Police should not and cannot effectively be responsible for 1/4 of what a city needs. Thus, they should not receive 1/4 of our city budget. Let's remind ourselves of what we're trying to protect here. Safety, quality of life, community. With less than 1/4 of the existing police budget, we could reinvest into social housing programs, emergency shelters, libraries, social service organizations, food banks, and supporting the many not-for-profits that provide free and necessary mental health care. Crime is a social issue. Police do not and cannot prevent crime. They can only, at best, respond to it.
Thank you for your presentation and for the timeliness of it as well. Any questions around the table? Seeing none, so thank you so much for your presentation this evening. And we'll move on to the next deputation. So I'm going to ask Daisy Oliveros to come and approach the podium. Have I said your name correctly?
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Okay. That will be like a first, so we should put that down that I got a name right.
I'm kind of used to it being mispronounced, so it doesn't really bother me.
Okay, well, welcome to council, and you have 5 minutes as well, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, Mayor Nuttall and council. Thank you for allowing this deputation. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I actually agree with much of what Michael Spears and what Caitlin had to say. I think there are vulnerable people in our city, and I think they would benefit greatly from social programs and empowering activities. And I'm personally very interested in seeing at-risk individuals of any age receive a second chance at rejoining society. I have worked alongside someone who turned her life around with some help from the David Busby Street Center, and she now lives indoors independently. So this woman is safer than she was when she was homeless, but she still has problems. Her next door neighbor, a man who thinks he has a relationship with her but does not, showed up at our workplace on more than one occasion, and he was not invited there. He had no business being there, and this behavior crossed the line. So I encouraged her to call the police to report him for stalking, and she wouldn't do it. She seemed unsure of whether or not this would be taken seriously or whether or not police would have time for a complaint of this nature. I think police are essential when it comes to protecting vulnerable people. I think that Barrie Police should be well-funded and that funding should result in a police force that is able to respond to the needs of a growing city. We're only getting bigger. You will need more police. Furthermore, if at-risk youth are to have access to any programs that guide them in the right direction, maybe they could also have access to positive interactions with police officers. Maybe just once in a while. This would reinforce the position that Michael Spears has, and it would help young people to see that police are not the boogeymen that they've been made out to be. And if anyone needs reminding, police are human. And when they are stressed, tired, overworked, or spread too thin, they may fail to live up to the standards of excellency that we often expect of them. I would also like everyone who is listening to consider that in every city, there are those who are inclined to exploit others. This is a very unfortunate reality. They will exploit those who have difficulty enforcing their personal boundaries, and if they perceive law enforcement to be too busy, too overloaded, overwhelmed, it only serves to embolden those who would take advantage. I think cities such as Seattle, San Francisco, or Vancouver are kind of examples of this. If you wanted to look for yourself, there's plenty of footage on YouTube. So if anyone here on City Council cares about the safety of Barrie's residents, particularly women and girls, if you care about discouraging those who would take advantage of others, then you should care about Barrie's police force, and you should make sure that they have what they need. Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation this evening. Are there any questions for Daisy this evening? I'm seeing none. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I'm going to call down Ash Pinault, please. Ash, welcome to City Council.
So I'm just going to start this right off the back by saying the library does more for the community than the Barrie Police ever has. In fact, the Barrie Police are harming the community. They are the problem. So giving them more money to terrorize our community is going to help how? It's not. You know it's not. I know it's not. A lot of the people here know it's not going to help anything. So let's talk about what this is really about. Bullying, control, greed, and manipulation. Some of you sitting in front of me have yet to grow up from high school. You sit there thinking you're better than everyone else and actively harm people. This isn't about making Barrie safe. This is about control, manipulation, and criminalization of our most vulnerable community members. Alex, you should be ashamed of yourself for more reasons than I have time to list. I don't know how you sleep at night. Each of you that do nothing but let Alex tell you how to live your life, honestly, that's punishment enough. I don't need to say anything on that. I'm not here to try and change your minds. You've proven you don't care. I'm here to call you out and make you sit with the ripple effects of your actions. Here to say that if you would listen to the real community of Barrie, there would be no need to ever discuss an increase in the police budget. You would invest into the solutions that are literally everywhere. It would make everyone's lives better. Literally everyone. But you're not in this to make lives better now, are you? The secret is out, and you won't be able to hide behind this stigma for much longer. The people want better, and we're demanding it.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from members of council? Seeing none, we'll move past the deputations for this evening into committee reports. So Deputy Mayor, it's over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be received.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Corser, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be received. This is 25G009, the report of the Affordability Committee, 25G010, report of the Community Safety Committee, and 25G011, report of the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee. Any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor Thompson, over to you.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kungle. Motion 25G015, section, vice versa, sorry. My apologies. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser, that Section B of the General Committee Report dated January 2022, 2025, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Corser, that Section B of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted. 25G012, Sea Cadets. 25G013, Amendment to Procedural Bylaw 2019-100. 25G014, Committee Updates. 25G015, 2025 Business Plan and Budget Service Partners. Are there any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I have an amendment to this motion. It's moved by myself, second by Councillor Kungle, that motion 25G015, Section B of General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, concerning the 2025 Business Plan and Budget Service Partners be separated and reintroduced as Section H.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kungle, that motion 25G015 of Section B of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, concerning the 2025 Business Plan and Budget Service Partners be separated and reintroduced as Section H. Are there any questions or comments with regards to the removal of this piece and reintroduction as Section H? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor, actually, before we do, unless you have another amendment to that specific one, we're going to go to the main motion. With regards to the leftover items, it would be the Sea Cadets, the amendment to the procedural bylaw, and committee updates. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries as amended. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser, that Section C of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Corser, that Section C of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted. This is for the grant applications, 25G016. Any questions or comments from members of council? Yes, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just wanted to declare potential peculiar interest in this matter, respect to item 25G016. I'm connected to one of the organizations that's applying, so I wanted to withdraw myself from this vote.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, has the conflict been noted?
Yes, Mayor Nuttall, it has been.
Great. So Councillor Harris will recuse himself from this debate. Or any other questions or comments? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And while we can't go into details of the applications, obviously, I just wanted to, on the surface, say that they were incredible applications. All of them, specifically, obviously, the ones awarded this. And, you know, sometimes you just take another levels of government's money and you say thank you. On this one, like, you know, if they were in front of me, I'd almost want to be like, you should read these applications to the government. You should see the work that they're doing. I'm genuinely proud of the work that was brought forward. So I think this is just the beginning of really good initiatives. So that all started with obviously Councillor Negussi bringing this forward and council supporting it and staff applying for it. Lots of people in that kitchen, and it's going to be worth it.
Thank you so much, Councillor Morales. Any other questions or comments from members of council? I'm seeing none, so we'll call the vote. All those in favor, and it carries. Welcome back to the table, Councillor Harris. And we'll move on to Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser, that Section D of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Corso. Section D of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted. Are there any questions or comments with regards to 25G017 from members of council? I'm seeing none, and heard in one of the deputations, Mr. Spears, you made a comment about encampments as well, and that's what this funding is about. So just want to highlight that for you because you came here and you had took the time for that. And I also want to just remind members of council that what this funding is doing is it's going to be used to both provide for spaces and the supportive services that are required in order to help individuals who are currently living rough or homeless or in an encampment. And so it provides that side, but it also provides the dollars to remove the encampments. And so I want everyone to be very clear on what they're voting on this evening, that this is part of a full plan. The plan isn't just to create spaces and not have any movement inside of parks. The plan is both to provide for those spaces and provide the help that we know is being requested and asked for, as well as moving inside of any of the spaces that we see that are public that are being used for encampments or those types of things. So I want everyone to be very clear on what they're voting for or against on this. I'm sorry, I was feeling under the weather last week, but I think that the county is leading in a very good way on this. We obviously don't always agree with the county, but they need to be also recognized when they're putting all of the right things in place to be able to meet the day on what is, I know is the issue of the ages for us. So I will now, Councillor Morales, yep.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and I don't like speaking after you as per the norm. The splitting of the earlier ones, and no disrespect to Deputy Mayor Thompson, that's on me following it. I had an amendment to table just on the Barrie Sports Hall of Fame.
That's at a later point. This is regards to not the county budget, but the
Okay.
support of the funding for the homelessness and encampment funding.
I'd rather be earlier than
Late,
Yeah,
100%.
thank you.
So I've got you first on the list after. Councillor Corser.
Question before the vote. So let me be clear that, just to clarify, this is, if this is passed, then there will be a movement to empty parks of encampments?
Yes, I'm going to go to Mr. James Reed quickly because I think there's about 700,000 that's set aside for, or maybe, sorry, it might be the clerk. Between the two of you, Madam Clerk, I apologize for going past you there. I think there's about 700,000 that's been set aside for encampment cleanup and removal.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to members of council, there has been, the county received over $3 million for the encampment initiative, and what that money is going to be used for is providing shelters, some shelter space for a removal, to assist with housing people that are currently in encampments, as well as the remediation cost for some of the parks cleanups that will be required as a result of cleaning up as a result of the removal of the encampments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Follow-up question to that. So my understanding that these shelter spaces that are going to be opening up are follow the rules of that was put forward by the Superior Court of Ontario versus Waterloo, People Anonymous versus Waterloo. I can't remember the name of but I'm sure everybody knows what court case I'm talking about.
Madam Clerk, before you speak, I think that there's been three, probably four main cases. One of them was Waterloo. There was another more recent, which I think is now going under a request to the Court of Appeal in Hamilton, which I think is probably more closely aligned with the funding that was announced by the province, as well as the response by the county to be supported by the city. The reality is that the county is going to do everything they can to provide quote-unquote accessible space to individuals who need it, and that means different things in different scenarios. But at the end of the day, what the Hamilton court ruling came down with was that the parks, there's more than just those who are living rough that are vulnerable in parks, and that the spaces need to be safe for all vulnerable people, and therefore encampments and open drug use were not welcome in those places. So I know that there's going to be an appeal of that, and then another court decision coming down. I still believe this ends up in the Supreme Court somewhere at some point, but I think this is more closely aligned with that, and I think that's outlined in the motion from last week.
May I, Mayor Nuttall, if there are people that are camping in our parks and there's not accessible spaces for them in shelter, will they still be removed from parks?
So the spaces that need to be provided or are being provided as part of the plan, it is not the plan to go in and remove ahead of having the capacity. I can't speak for the county. We don't run the county. What they do is up to them. But the plan that they put forward certainly tries to create spaces. They're looking for places for these spaces right now. As you know, we have a bit of a land issue in Barrie, and we're trying to figure out what that looks like and where it is. And when you pair that with the funding that we just received for the Heart Hub, which will also create more space, I think that the outlook is good, but the first step is to create the space before you're doing any of the other stuff.
So to be clear, then there will not be residents, unhoused people that are camping in parks removed unless there's accessible spaces for them. So you don't know, or we don't know the answer to this?
Mr. Prowse.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Courser. Perhaps I can assist. The county is not responsible, Councillor Courser, for removing encampments from parks. The city does that, but we do it in partnership with the county. And I can tell you that our protocol requires that they have been offered appropriate housing prior to us ever moving on an encampment. So that is a commitment from the city. That is part of our protocol, but it is the city that initiates it in partnership with the county, not the county removing encampments. It's the city that removes encampments.
And so when somebody is moved from an encampment, then as the city, we will ensure that whoever is moved from an encampment has an accessible place for them that will be address their specific individual issues.
As a follow-up through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Courser, it gets more complicated, Councillor Courser. Well, we do remove the encampments. We do not provide, as you know, the social housing. So we rely on the service manager, that be the County of Simcoe, for a number of things, two of which are to confirm that the individuals in the encampments have indeed been offered appropriate housing, and secondly, through the service providers, to eventually provide that housing if the individual chooses to take them up on it. The city does not provide that function, nor do we control if they actually go into housing. So there's split responsibilities, but it's also a partnership. So I can't tell you definitively that we ensure that they go into housing, because that's just not our purview. But that is the expectation from the county, and so far the county has been a very good partner in that regard.
All right, thank you. There's just so much gray to this that information that I guess I should have followed up on earlier, but I think I've made my decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courser. Any other members of council? Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Manetto. I think for me, the important part of understanding the gray is the proposal of the county is looking to add 226 temporary shelter spaces. So I think that's really important. So with cold coming to council tonight, and it would be nice to have 226 more spaces for those people in the cold. So I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Any other members of council who'd like to speak to this? I'm seeing none, so I'm going to call a vote and ask for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Starting with Councillor Rietma.
Yes.
Councillor Nixon.
Yes.
Councillor Kungle.
Yes.
Councillor Courser.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Negussi.
Yes.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Morales,
Yes.
Councillor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Nuttall.
Yes.
Carries
That
un-
is,
carries.
thank you so much, Madam Clerk. That's unanimous. And Deputy Mayor, over to you.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser, that Section E of General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Corso, that Section E of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated to be adopted. This is 25G018, licensing of water sports. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser, that Section F of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Corso, that Section F of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted. This is 25G019, Conservation of Built Heritage Community Improvement Plan. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser, that Section G of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Corser, that Section G of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, now circulated, to be adopted. This is 25G020, the Chia MZO update for 175 and 199 Essa Road and 50 Wood Street. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? It carries. Just give us one moment, please.
Sorry about that. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser, that motion 25G015, Section H of General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025, concerning the 2025 Business Plan and Budget Service Partners be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Corser that motion 25G015 of Section H of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025 concerning the 2025 Business Plan and Budget Service Partners be adopted. And Deputy Mayor, I know I have an amendment coming from you, and then I'm going to come across Councillor Morales. I know I have one from you as well. So I'll start with Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Moved by myself and second by Councillor Negussi, that motion 25G015 of Section H of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025. Be amended, or concerning the 2025 Business Plan and Budget Service Partners be amended as followed. The amendment to paragraph 2 and add the following. The Financial Stabilization Reserve, as discussed during the Barrie Public Library presentation dated January 15, 2025, be approved. That the future capital expenditure reserve remain intact for its intended purposes and not be renamed or used for general reserves as discussed during the Barrie Public Library presentation on January 15, 2025. And the Barrie Public Library Board be requested to transfer up to 8.3% equal to 1 month of operation expenses of funding and future capital expansion reserve to the fiscal response stabilization reserve, and that an additional 1%, 98,000, reflective of a current Barrie Public Library budget request identified on page 301 of the business plan and budget be allocated to the Barrie Public Library Future Capital Expenditure Reserve, and the tax levy be increased by $98,000, and the capital project entitled Barrie Northwest Boutique Library be established with intended funding for $150 from development charge reserve to allow for staff and corporate facilities in consultation with the Barrie Public Library staff to undertake the initial design and required preliminary work which indicate investigation, potential locations, and report back to General Committee once completed. The following paragraph be added, paragraph 3, with the renumbering paragraphs the remaining paragraphs to be renumbered accordingly, that staff and financial department develop a list of reporting requirements to be followed by the Barrie Public Library Board when presenting their annual budget request to City Council, and report back to Finance and Responsible Governance with the list.
I'm surprised you didn't memorize that one. It's moved by Deputy Member Thompson, seconded by Councillor Negussi, that motion 25G015 of Section H of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025 concerning the 2025 Business Plan and Budget Service Partners be amended as follows. To amend paragraph 2 to add the following. A, the financial stable... You can definitely request a point of order and ask to speak to the clerk.
Point of order, I'd like to speak to the clerk, please.
Members of council, we'll just take a 5-minute recess.
All right. It was moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councilor Negussi, that motion 25G015 of Section H of the General Committee Report dated January 22nd, 2025 concerning the 2025 Business Plan and Budget Service Partners be amended as follows. To amend paragraph 2 to add the following. A, that the financial stabilization reserve, as discussed during the Barrie Public Library's presentation dated January 15th, be approved. B, that the future capital expenditure reserve remain intact for its intended purpose and not be renamed or used as a general reserve, as discussed during the Barrie Public Library presentation on January 15th. That the Barrie Public Library be requested to transfer up to 8.3% equal to 1 month of operating expenses of funding in future capital expenditure reserve to the financial stabilization reserve. D, that an additional 1%, $98,000, reflective of the current Barrie Public Library budget request identified on page 301 of the business plan and budget be allocated to the Barrie Public Library Future Capital Expenditure Reserve and the tax levy be increased by $98,000. And E, that a capital project entitled Barrie Northwest Boutique Library be established with initial funding of $150,000 from the Development Charge Reserve to allow for staff and corporate services in consultation with the Barrie Public Library staff to undertake the initial design and required preliminary work, which includes investigating potential locations, and report back to General Committee once completed. That the following be added as paragraph 3, with the remaining paragraphs to be renumbered accordingly. 3, that the staff in Finance Department develop a list of reporting requirements to be followed by the Barrie Public Library when presenting their annual budget request to City Council and report back to Finance and Responsible Governance with a list. Deputy Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. So after the library presentation, there was a little bit of conversation and stuff of a direction we wanted to kind of see, which I think we're achieving by this motion. And that the library and the board have been working with staff in the reserves with, you know, the intended use and how they're stored, I guess. So that's why the amendment's here. And then with the Northwest Library, you know, a lot of work with staff over the week. We're just looking at some things, and now they have some seed money to start some of the investigations and planning and you know, the feasibility of it and where it would go. So I think, like, as we heard in some of the deputations about, you know, the importance of library. And I think there's been times where people think that, you know, some of the conversation around the table has been anti-library, and it's never been that. We've actually been very supportive of the library, and I think we understand the importance of the library in the community as they have become hubs, you know, for lots of different reasons and people. So I think this investment and looking to expand their services is achieved by this amendment.
Thank you. Are there any comments? I see Councillor Negussi. Any other members of council? I see Councillor Riepma. Okay, we'll start with Councillor Negussi and then Councillor Riepma.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I have had quite an intensive dialogue with Deputy Mayor Thompson about this motion. And as a Barrie Public Library Board member, I'm very excited to see the City of Barrie and Barrie Public Library working together on this. And I'm eager to see what we can accomplish collaboratively moving forward. And thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. I'm happy with this motion and fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Negussi. Now, Councillor Riepma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just have a question, really, and that is, I just got this resolution as just now, and I guess I'm not sure that I've got my head around all the details of it, but I wonder if the mover could answer this question. Has there been discussion with the library board, and are they happy with what the recommendation is?
Sorry, there's multiple parts to this. Which part are you referring to? If it's regarding the library location, the funds set aside, the moving forward with the Northwest Library, that can go there. If it's with regards to the reserves, I would like to answer that.
Okay.
So which one would you like to?
I don't have a problem with the Northwest. I think that's a perfect, great.
So it's a reserve question.
It's a reserve question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had and Chris is here this evening. We had a conversation. I think it was Monday morning as well, And I know others had conversations with library board as well, or members of library board chair specifically, and staff. And the request, there was really two requests. One was to create this new reserve, which is in this motion to create that new reserve. The request as part of that reserve was to put a target of 1 month operating dollars into said operating reserve in case, the world ended, right? And so that's in this motion as well. The second request that they had made was to create a second reserve and really move from the future capital expenditure reserve. I think by the end of the conversation, it was more renaming than it was anything else. But inside of what we are approving, I think there'll be some more report back to Finance Committee based on what this is saying, is that if the operating reserve falls short, like, if they end up spending $300,000 on, I don't know, something that no one foresaw happening, which is plausible, they can move money from their future capital reserve over to their operating reserve to bring it back up to that amount of having that month available. And so I think at this point, they're okay with it, but I think there's what needs to be, and I'm getting nods, what needs to be finalized is the verbiage around the policies for each of the reserves. And what I didn't want to see, and I don't think it was intended, I think it was just sort of, the thinking on one side was make it as flexible as possible. The thinking on the other side was okay with the flexibility, but we also still want to have our thought process to the future capital, not just, hey, this is all money that can be spent. And I think once we got on, we realized we were pretty much on the same page, and it's just down to policy words. So that'll come back as part of any of our updates in the future. And I think everybody's satisfied that it's not going to constrict the library from being able to operate. It's not going to constrict them from being able to move money between accounts if they need to. So I think, Chris, if you can, am I generally outlining what our conversation was? Yeah. So that was the overall.
Okay. That was my main concern, that just to make sure that the library was on board with all of this and could work with it. Thanks.
And I just got more confirmation from Councillor Negussi, who spoke with the CEO this morning, that she's okay with this move forward or process forward. Okay, any other questions or comments from members of council with regards to the amendment to the budget? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? And it carries. Are there any other amendments? I know I've got Councillor Morales. Is there any other amendments coming forward for the budget this evening? I'm seeing none, so we're going to go over to you. We would have gone to you anyways, Councillor Morales, but it's yours. The floor is yours.
No worries. I just thought you were pointing slightly off to the side, so no, that's okay. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gary Harvey, that motion 25-G-015 of Section H of the General Committee report dated January 22nd, 2025 concerning the 2025 business plan and budget service partners be amended by the following, to add the following paragraph, that $20,000 be provided to the Barrie Sports Hall of Fame for ongoing operation costs to be funded from the tourism reserve. And I can speak to that, and as I hand it to the deputy clerk, members of council will find this in their inboxes. It's a long document.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. It's moved by Councillor Morales and seconded by Councillor Harvey. The motion 25G015, Section H of the General Committee report dated January 22nd, 2025, concerning the 2025 business plan and budget service partners be amended by the following, to add the following paragraph, that $20,000 be provided to the Barrie Sports Hall of Fame for ongoing operating costs to be funded from the Tourism Reserve. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Members of council, I think you will, when you read the motion, you'll see that it's consistent with a lot of the discussions from the Barrie Sports Hall of Fame has communicated to us. They've come here formally, I believe, twice. What I really like about them is the first presentation, they said, this is our vision, what we hope to see. And then the second presentation was, this is what we've done. and it was materially progressed and moved forward. I said it at that reference committee meeting, so I'll say it again. There's lots of people involved, but the two gentlemen, they're spearheading some of this more macro stuff. They are what I can only assume is when people refer to that kind of old school respect and handshake and sincerity, like they embody that. They don't play games. When they say they do something, they say it. When they say they'll arrive there at a time, I'm probably almost always late compared to them, but they are salt of the earth and great gentlemen, and that's how they run this organization. And I think that's why they've had so much success with this. In addition to that, I'm extremely impressed at their, and I'm not going to ever guess their age, but I'm extremely impressed at their embracing of technology. One would assume that somebody of an older generation, and they do really good product with the art framing and the art that they provide. You have a good product, you stick to it and say, the other stuff is trendy. They went, how can we pivot to a mobile on the spot? How can we pivot to kiosks? How can we pivot towards interactive while also keeping the traditional? So nothing but good things to say. And this is something that definitely enhances all of our public spaces at Allendale, at Holly, in East Bayfield, and hopefully more places to come in the future. So I am supportive of this.
Any other questions or comments from members of council? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Through you to the mover of the motion. Maybe just take the chance. I think Councilor Morales joined the board halfway through the first year, I believe. And I think you've actually embraced the whole Hall of Fame and moving them forward. And I got a really nice call from one of the members about your dedication. And I know you traveled to Oshawa to look at a Hall of Fame. So, kudos to you and looking to move this forward.
Any other members of council? Seeing none, I have a confession for the council table. This is something I said publicly that I would put into the budget, did not. Then got reminded by Councilor Morales, still did not. And then got reminded for probably the 7th time that I made a commitment and didn't. And so thank you for following up on that and following through on that, because I forgot. So I apologize.
And Mayor Nuttall, what I love is not just that confession, and I'm not going to point to them, the senior staff members who were smiling while you were saying that and thinking to themselves, oh, so it's not just, he doesn't just do it with me. He also does it with the mayor. So thank you for that as well.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you. And I'll call the vote on the amendment that's on the floor from Councilor Morales and Councilor Harvey. I think you seconded it. All those in favor? And it passes. Are there any other amendments to the budget? Comments for the budget? Councillor Hamilton? Morales? Harris? Harvey, you got anything last? Councillor Degussy? I know you don't. I've talked to you too many times about it. Councillor Riepma? Nixon? You're good? Councillor Corser? Okay. So folks, I do have something to say, as you might imagine. I'm sorry I wasn't here last week, but this is the final piece of our budget. And I want to put in perspective some of the changes that we've made to the budget process over the past 2 years, this being, I guess, the more, the healthier of the two, because it was really a bridge year last year. We had a finance committee meeting where members of council, everyone participated. I think everyone was here at the finance committee meeting. We then had a general committee meeting. We then had a city council meeting, and that was all before Christmas. And now we've had 3 meetings in January. We had presentations, followed by general committee last week, followed by city council this week. There have been more opportunities to speak to this budget than any budget that's ever been passed in the City of Barrie. And I say that with confidence. As my 11th budget I've been part of, it is by far provided more opportunity than ever before. So, number one, thank you for being part of that process and for getting us through it. Number two, folks, please watch what we're saying publicly. Because when we say that things have been stifled or haven't had the opportunity, but there's actually more opportunity than there ever has been before, I take that personally, because when I went to CAA Prowse and I went to our clerk and we started looking at the dates and times and the number of meetings that we were going to be putting into the budget, believe me, it was my pushing for more, do the finance committee before we go to general committee and city council. And that's so that everybody can get on side, get their information in early, get their requests in early, and move forward. If there are things that we haven't done correctly, I think that you've got a couple of months to put it together, because we're going to get into a budget sometime in September. And so come with that feedback, but please, come with that feedback, because there has been nothing but open discussion around this table on now 6 occasions to deal with this budget. And when the media asks, well, why, is everything just moving, the way that it should, it's because there's been so much time and opportunity put into this budget. I believe the first budget conversation with the binders coming around was maybe October 25th or something like that. Maybe it was the first week of November. So this is months, folks. Months we've had this to go through. And you know what the beauty is? It's still not perfect, but it's a really, really good budget. And we have the library who've come on side and they've wanted to work with, and we've had all of our partners who've come on side and they've said, you know what, the first year we felt threatened by what the city was saying in terms of living within means. The second year we're like, uh-oh, we don't know. And the third year it's been bought into. And these are really good things. There's more work to do, there's no question. But these are really good things. So if we have feedback, if we have things that we want to do differently, please bring them. Certainly, doors always open on that front. I'm now going to call the vote. I'll ask for a report of vote on the budget as amended. Excuse me, just 1 second. As amended 2 times. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Councillor Rima.
Yes.
Councillor Nixon.
Yes.
Councillor Kungle.
Yes.
Councillor Courser.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Negussi.
Yes.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Morales.
Yes.
Councillor Hamilton.
Yes.
And Mayor Nuttall.
Yes. Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. And here are the 3 signed pieces. Before we go into the direct motions, I'm going to call up for presentation. And I apologize because I think I missed it earlier on for the presentations. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Claudine Cousins to come down with Mr. Hall from Empower Simcoe. Nope, he's staying at the back, he said. He's refusing to get in front of a microphone. He wouldn't know what to do with it. Of course, Mr. Hall worked in radio for a lot of years. Welcome to Barrie City Council. And the floor is yours, Claude.
I'm looking to see if you have a button where I disappear into the floor after like 2 minutes or something. So.
The answer is yes, but it's a much shorter time period, yes.
Oh, thank you so much, Mayor Nuttall and Council, friends around the room. Thank you for having us. I'm Claudine. I know I'm doctor, but you can just call me Claudine. Thank you for having me. I'm just here to refresh the memory of some of you about Empower Simcoe, and for those who don't know us very well, just to give you some information about who we are and what we've been up to. We are a multi-service organization. We've been around for over 70 years. We are one of the largest in Ontario. We're also one of the largest employers in Simcoe County. So just want to flag that with over 600 employees. And we're very much a champion for equity, diversity, and inclusion. We are a changing community. And the more organizations that are welcoming of that, the better for our community. We're also an accredited organization, which is important because we believe in standards and we believe in delivering services at a very high level. One of the things, as you know, we've heard in some of the deputations, we've heard through council, you know, we just have to watch the news or look out the door, is that housing is a big issue. And for Empower Simcoe, that supports all people from birth to end of life, housing is also important to us. And we've been doing a lot of work with the housing portfolio to continue to support within our community as well as across the province all the issues around housing. And one of the things that we do is work with CMHC, I just want to flag that, to help them understand the difference between building housing for someone who has a disability versus building for you and I. And the door is not a door, it's the cost is much higher, and they need to understand that that impacts on how we are able to do that as an organization. A big part of the work that we do is advocacy, and we are part of a consortium called the Intentional Community Consortium, which is focused on housing. We spend a lot of time on the Hill talking to federal and government at all level in terms of those in power and those who are not in power about supporting housing for individuals with intellectual disabilities. And as part of that, what we do is just try to ask for the various levels of government to commit to certain things. So for example, the federal government, we've asked them to commit to co-investment funds to consider the impact of updated costs given cost of living. With the provincial government, we've asked them to commit to a 15% of funding that comes from the federal government to focus on that population. And at the municipal level, we're looking at, if there are lands available or funds or the real, I guess, rock in our shoe as a service provider, the way bylaws are developed and how zoning happens within the City of Barrie. So just to give you a bit of context around who we're talking about and the demand, people with intellectual disabilities have social services as their only way to get services. The health doesn't really pay attention to what they need. The municipal affairs in terms of housing doesn't. And I'm sad to say even the municipalities and the cities really don't pay attention to them in a way that is really helping us to move the needle. They're really relegated to Ministry of Community and Social Services, and the expectation is that everything gets done by MCCSS, as we call them. So one of the things that we see in Simcoe County is the demand for supports from this population. As you can see here, if I just look at group homes or the desire to have support in a group home for someone, we have, this is from last year, 1,370 requests in Simcoe County alone. And the vacancy in group home, we only have 14. So, it's a huge gap between what people are looking for and what's available. But you can also see on there that it's not just group homes. We're talking about respite. We're talking about individualized supports. And a lot of us provide respite. A lot of us provide caregiving to our families. And we don't think about those that do it day in and day out, and there's no support for them. So just want to bring that to your attention. Then this slide here speaks to the demand for services as a province. Right now, there are over 52,000 people waiting for service within the province, and supported within the service system right now is around 26,000. So, it is a large wait list, people looking to come in, and you can see here the ages ranges from 16 all the way up. One of the big pieces is the demographic that's aging. So families are aging. So if you are supporting someone at home with a disability and we come into the home to help you, as you age, you're looking for what's going to happen to my loved one when I can't provide the supports, when I can't do this. So it's really important for us to think about that these individuals are, they're just out there waiting for just a little bit of help, and they don't have that help. So we have to keep that in mind as we think about housing from a much broader perspective. And just to flag as well that within the municipal And, within our county or even the city, there's a housing list. So we keep names on a list. People are waiting for housing. This population is not included in that waiting list. So we have to keep that in mind as well. So really, I just want to focus on this before I get the gong. Barriers to decreasing the demand. So, when it comes to the City of Barrie, we're talking about current zoning law, 2019-115, that stipulates group home growth. And it talks about group homes must be located in detached dwellings and up to 5 individuals permitted. Talks about, the maximum of those residents are really at the low level when it comes to other areas. So if you go up the road to Aurelia, completely different. They provide a much more inclusive approach to their zoning, and so does below us in Bradford. So we really need to think about how rules are developed and made that impacts this population. It also speaks to detached homes as the only places that we can use for group homes. Those are expensive when we could easily put someone into a semi-detached or a townhouse. So, there is a crisis, and we're waiting for not only our provincial government, but we need our municipal governments to really take a look and say, are we really failing this population? They are vulnerable, and they're being left behind because they're not being considered as part of the overall group of individuals. So the call for action for us is to say, can the City of Barrie do things differently? And, look at things such as the 5 only in a group home. The bylaw or the law that we use within developmental services, which is the social inclusion of persons with developmental disability, we call SIPDA, says it's a minimum of, so they have a minimum number, there's no maximum number. But Barrie puts a maximum on it, and it really doesn't help us in terms of helping us to be more efficient or effective. Also, Barrie doesn't allow, we can't use a lot of our spaces, like in our homes that we have basement apartments, we can't use anything because the numbers are too high, so we can't house anyone in there. So, it really does limit us in terms of our ability to help with the housing issue. So if we have individuals who are looking for space, and we have space, but the bylaw says you can only have 5 people in that house, why is that? I couldn't tell you could have only 5 children. We couldn't do that. So it's, some blatant discrimination between individuals who are disabled and those who are not in terms of helping them to access housing. And I think that's something that the City of Barrie needs to take a look at and think about, are we really failing our population in terms of their ability to live a really inclusive life? And I think that's a easy thing for me to ask. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for a change in mindset and the way we do our business, and to make it more inclusive versus exclusive. And it wouldn't be talking about social services if I didn't talk about money. Not that I'm asking you for the money, but I just wanted to flag, it gets really difficult each and every year for social services to deliver all of the services that's required. And all levels of government are tightening their belts, and they're cutting back, and they're, making choices. And this population is one that is usually left out. They are not as sexy as roads, not as sexy as alcohol. We just don't have that kind of cachet to sort of say, look at us. So we are coming to help you understand that this could be your loved one. This could easily be you or I, because anyone can become disabled at any time. So we really need to pay attention to this population and think about, whether you're failing them as a council and as a city. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation tonight, Claudine. Just before we go to members of council, if you can give me a second, I'm just going to ask Ms. Banfield, have you seen the information and request for changes prior to this in terms of the zoning bylaw?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, Ms. Cousins and I, Dr. Cousins and I have met a couple of times, but we haven't actually talked about the zoning bylaw. So certainly, as all of you know, it's a great time for us to take this conversation offline. Certainly can tell you at the first blush that we have made the change to allowing it to not restricting it to single detached in terms of the drafts. Obviously, it's a draft bylaw, looking at expanding the zones that group homes are permitted. And I definitely will take away that up to 5 person limit for future drafts. But we can talk more specifically with Dr. Cousins about the zoning bylaw.
Thank you, and that is exactly what I was thinking. So if you could reach out after this. I had Councillor Rietma.
I have a question, Dr. Cousins. Thank you very much for that presentation. It's certainly enlightening. You suggested that you would like to be able to use as semi-detached as well as townhouses, but you didn't include in that list apartments. And I'm just wondering if there's a reason for that.
No, I didn't mention it, but there are no limits to what type of accommodation we can use. We do have individuals who are in apartments now. We have them in condos. So the type of housing really can be anything because we can wrap the services around the individuals as needed. Just right now for us, we have 43 group homes. And those group homes some of them are in spaces we have lots of land. We can't do anything with it because there's some limitations on, what you can do with the 5 and all of the drainage and all, things that I don't understand, but I'm sure someone understands. But there's also, we try not to have too many of our group homes or our accommodations side by side. We're not trying to create, a ghettoization of individuals with intellectual disabilities in one community. We want them spread out. So absolutely, apartments are in play, condos are in play, and houses are in play.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think our planning staff could take that back as well, that maybe we could look at what kind of accommodation we could use in our zoning bylaw for that.
Thank you, Councillor Rietma. I'm going to go to Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and through you. Good evening, Dr. Cousins. So thank you for providing the education information about Empower Simcoe. I think I've had the privilege of visiting some of your space because it's in Ward 3, and I know we've got that beautiful playground, accessible playground that's going to be hopefully coming soon, but you've been doing lots of work there. On the group home specific piece, I have seen some of the details in the new draft zoning bylaw that are very positive. I think it would be highly beneficial to really see what staff have in there to date and maybe ask some questions about that. So I'd encourage you before we have coffee, that I know we were trying to arrange to connect with Ms. Banfield to make sure that if you've got any suggestions, they can be included in it while there's an open public consultation. But one piece I wanted to clarify for my own understanding, when we talk about group homes, is that setting required to have 24-hour supervision, or is staff more fluid?
It's fluid because now we have technology. We don't have staff sometimes within the location all the time. And we do have our supported independent living, which is right here in downtown Barrie. And those individuals are usually, very self-directed. So we spend very few hours with them in their space. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. And I'm assuming through Mayor Nuttall and follow up that's a beautiful piece too around leveraging technology, but also supporting one's independence and ability to kind of manage but reach out when needed and have those safe check-ins or supports that's customized to the person.
Yes, it is.
So if there was something that looked at a definition of group homes around that, and it talked about supervision, would we need to think about how we define supervision a bit differently? About there's a connectivity, there's access to support 24/7, but there's not necessarily meaning that there's a live-in physical member of your staff that's with those individuals in a group home.
I think that's fair to say. Right now, we are looking at some of our homes that are transitional homes or development, skill development. Individuals come in to learn to live by themselves. So we can't be in their space if they're going to learn. If we're there always, looking over their shoulders, we want them to spend the time learning to do all the things that we do in our own space. So we are outside that space while they're there, but they're still part of our group homes.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Renato, and great to see you, Dr. Cousins. I'll just say, you made the comment about the homes. In Allendale, Ward 8, but in Allendale specifically, there's a number of homes.
Yeah.
And what I can say is, I get no complaints. What I can say is, Empower Simcoe are good neighbors. So I know at one point there was 7. So I happen to know them very, very close to where I live. Now there's 5 because there was 2 on Broadmoor that were moved out of your system. But Empower Simcoe are good neighbors. So it would be a welcome addition to a neighborhood to see you expand your efforts and hopefully provide more housing, get more individuals into housing. So, and I do think at 5, I know there's some work to change garages into living space and trying to make better use of the houses, but being capped at 5 just doesn't really work. It doesn't make sense when you're trying to be creative and create more space in the house. So I look forward to seeing us being able to do something different to move that number. So thank you.
Thank you for that, especially around the good neighbor. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is not being noticed. We want you to drive down a street and not even know that it's a group home. And we've been very successful at that. We believe in, our lawns should look as good as anyone else, or our curb appeal should look the same, right? So we're very, very proud of that. So thank you.
We thank the green team.
That's right. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nettle. Thank you, Dr. Cousins, for presenting to us. I kind of had a chance to write a few thoughts here while some of my colleagues were communicating there. What I like about Empower Simcoe is you're not quite a private sector company in the traditional sense. You're not quite a government institution like a formalized one. You're this unique kind of organization that fills the need of this missing middle of social services. And just like housing, the missing middle, that's an issue. And just like social services and housing supports, again, there's such a hybrid. When those services aren't there, we not only see it immediately, but as Ms. Baldwin referred to earlier, we see it in the people in our community. We see it with people who are hurting, who are broken, and then it just gets worse for them, for the community. And by the way, this is an indirect shout out, Ms. Baldwin, great presentation. I support your passion. I've known you for a couple of years. I didn't know you were so political, but this is all related to this conversation. And so I commend for that missing middle, the way you've stepped up. Our city and our county, I believe, are better because you exist, because Empower Simcoe exists, and what you've done. And usually that's not a field that I tend to be gravitated towards at City Hall. We have 69 services, I think, and counting, and I tend to go different directions. But your marketing manager, Jamie Hall, which again, by the way, great hire. He approached me 6, 7. He didn't tell me to say that. He's too polite too, but I'm not. But 6, 7 years ago, he approached me and said if I could be a member of the public advisor board, not the former board of directors, but he has a public advisor board just to make sure, kind of stays on the tune with the community. And so I've had a chance to see the great work you do a little bit closer than I usually would have. And again, this is more of a comment than a question. Again, incredible work you do. The city and the county are better for what you do. I even every month learn about more things that you do. And it's not things that we see that are that important, but we would notice if they weren't there. We would notice the services, the community, the housing supports. We would see it either in our inboxes or we would see it on the streets. And our communities would be worse because of it, no matter how you approach. So that I totally support. The other kind of comment is I like the timing about this. Mayor Nuttall, Jamie had approached me about like, hey, could we present to council? There's no money being asked months ago. So this is just serendipitous timing that it was on tonight. But what I really like, considering we approved that section earlier, is you made a reference to it in your slide about that in some of the group homes or some of the situations, you're trying to support people with a specifically kind of a violent or possibly youth tied up in crime. I really hope that the City of Barrie sees, if the program exists moving forward, an application from Empower Simcoe for a guns and gangs prevention initiative. There might be money there, and you are tying it, while not directly, I just gave Jamie work, while not directly there, being tied into the housing component of it, there might be an opportunity. And I guess to get a question out of my comment, could you maybe elaborate on what unique service delivery approach Empower Simcoe emphasizes or prioritizes in those youth that are being housed that maybe have your wording on the slide, run-ins with the law or legal challenges or those kind of behaviors?
Thank you for the question. I think first of all, we're an organization that believes in partnerships, and we partner with the police, for example. So wherever we go, especially we support individuals who are coming out of, say, Waypoint and or from our jails. Like, they're coming out of systems that are created in a sort of stigma attached on top of the fact that they have a disability. And usually no one wants them in their neighborhood. Even if we're a good neighbor, people don't want certain people in their neighborhoods. But we support youth who are transitioning and who do have some who are at risk, and have had some trouble with the law. We do support individuals with multiple complex needs. They have the forensic needs, they have the medical, they have the intellectual disability. That's a lot of factors that we have to consider. And when we look at, for example, putting in a group home, one of the things we do is go to our police partners and say, can you help us do a safety plan around our home? So we really do reach out into the community and access the supports that's there, because we know as an organization we can't do anything by ourselves. And it's not always about money. It's really about how do you come together and pool what you have for the benefit of whoever you're supporting. So one of the hardest areas to support are individuals with who are forensic needs or have some kind of justice issue attached to them. But we have decided that they're in our community. What do we have to figure out how to support them. So it's not just the Ministry of Children and Community Services who does social services. We believe we're a community agency, and our job is to help respond and or anticipate some of the issues that impact our community. And we do that through putting our name out there and saying, we want to support this population, but we need to have supports to help us do that. So, those are some of the things that we continue to do, and we do build specialized homes that are focused on certain population, because we know that the need's there, and we have really excellent staff with the qualifications and the competencies to support individuals and make sure that the community is still safe, as well as the people that we're supporting.
Thank you. And finally, one last thing through you, Mayor Nuttall. Years ago, I was at a gas station on Bayfield Street. I was gassing up my Mustang, and I ended up talking to this individual. There's a story here, don't worry. And as we got talking, he was clearly didn't have a car, and he's at a gas station, right? And we got talking, and his story was he got let out of one of the jails, yeah. And he was, I would say, in his mid-30s, and he wasn't violent, he wasn't belligerent, he wasn't shaky. He was like regretful at the time he lost, and very quickly I got talking, because as I'm known to do, and kind of asked him, what's your story? Just said it bluntly. He could have said, I don't want to share, so I gave him the control there. And he said he was in an incident, he got involved in a domestic dispute that he shouldn't have, and he very heavily implied he was on his 2.5 strike already. So when they showed up, whether it was his fault or not, he should have just kept his room shut to his apartment and wherever he lived. And he went away for some time. And he said he lost everything, meaning here's an individual in their 30s who said he lost everything, not just monetary, but life situation and the people. And so what he was up to that evening was how he was going to piece it all back together. Organizations like you, from what I'm hearing, ensure that either people who are trying to piece it back together, and there was a genuine authenticness with what he said. He was trying to be better. He didn't have anger, he didn't have resentment, he didn't say he wanted to make a quick buck. He said, I want to put it back together. So organizations like yours not only allow those people to reintegrate who are wanting to be productive and reintegrate, but also maybe catches youth who might be if not assisted, on their way towards that to begin with. So I'll close it with this: better you than nobody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's all of the questions. And Claudine, thanks so much for coming in again this evening. And thank you for all the work the organization does in the community, that which you get seen doing and that which you aren't seen doing, because there's a lot more that people don't see than do see. And we really, really do appreciate you taking care of literally our most vulnerable citizens. So thank you.
Thank you.
With the presentations complete, there's no deferred business. I'm going to move into direct motions. And the first direct motion this evening is going to be for myself. And haven't done this before, so I'm just going to confirm with our clerk. Do I need to have a seconder on this or no?
Mayor Nuttall, no, you do not. Under the Municipal Act, the mayor is allowed to introduce motions that are in alignment with the provincial priorities that are under provincial regulation pursuant to the Municipal Act.
Okay. Thank you. So the following motions on the floor, I think it's been circulated. And it says this: that in accordance with Section 284.1 of the Municipal Act, I, Alex Nuttall, Mayor, do introduce the following motion to Council. Whereas if Ontario were a standalone country, it would be the United States' third largest trading partner with a near perfect balance in two-way trade totaling $493 billion in 2023, employing millions of workers on both sides of the border. And whereas the City of Barrie is a member of the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus, who work collaboratively at the provincial and federal levels to promote awareness, advocacy, and strategic policy initiatives to further strengthen the Canadian economy through advancements and investments in including but not limited to the automotive sector. And whereas Premier Doug Ford has outlined the province of Ontario's forthcoming Fortress AmCan plan, which focuses on strengthening trade between Ontario and the U.S., on key issues including national security, integrated and safe electricity grids, building out mineral supply chains and advanced manufacturing supply chains, while bringing good jobs back for workers on both sides of the border. And whereas the federal government has established the Canada-U.S. Relations Council to support the federal government as it deals with the possible U.S. tariffs that include representatives from the auto sector, unions, various industries, and agriculture. Whereas trade between Ontario and the U.S. is very important to our residents, our local economies, and requires all levels of government to work together in the best interests of those residents. And whereas according to data from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, municipalities in Ontario are expected to spend between $250 and $290 billion on infrastructure in the next 10 years. And whereas municipalities have traditionally been prevented by trade agreements from giving preference to buy Canadian, therefore be it resolved that the City of Barrie call on the Prime Minister, federal ministers, and the federal government's newly established Canada-U.S. Relations Council to take any and all measures to protect the interests of the province of Ontario in any upcoming trade negotiations, that the City of Barrie offer its support and assistance, including formal delegations by the Mayor, CAO, and or their designates to the federal and provincial governments to strike a deal with the U.S. that will benefit all involved when it comes to strengthening our economy and keeping Ontario jobs intact. And finally, the City of Barrie calls upon the federal and provincial governments to remove any impediments to municipalities discounting American companies for capital projects and supplies. And I'll speak to that really quickly. I think the main piece of it is the final piece of it, if I can, which is that the City of Barrie calls upon our federal and provincial governments to allow us to create discounts on American companies that are looking to procure or looking to answer our procurement, and to make it more difficult for them to do business with us if in fact we see tariffs levied against Canada over the next number of days, weeks, or months. The reason that Buy Canadian as a slogan doesn't exactly work is because we have more than one trade agreement that we need to respect. We have free trade in the Pacific, we have free trade with Europe, with CETA, and so we can't discount everybody because they're not the ones who are stomping on our trade agreements. But when it comes to protecting Canadian jobs and protecting Barrie jobs, and creating Barrie jobs, I think it's important that we understand what tools are at our disposal. It doesn't mean we have to use them, but at least get the information back on that if we do see a trade war escalate going forward. All of the information that I'm being told is that we should expect it. It doesn't mean it's going to be February 1st, but we should expect it to happen. And it doesn't mean it's going to be 25%, but we should expect it to happen. So I think it's really important for us as a council to understand this. I think we're going to have more and more requests on this front, quite frankly, as to what are we doing and how are we being part of the Ontario and the Canada teams that are responding. And so I think it's important we get ahead of it a little bit. Big City Mayors is also taking this on. We'll be meeting, I believe, on Friday. And in that meeting, we'll be adopting a similar response from across all of our municipalities. And I think the final piece is that in our executive meeting, and this is going to be playing out over the next little while, but our executive meeting for the Big City Mayors, it was, became really apparent that we didn't just want to be sitting here saying, I'm mad at you, United States, and therefore, right? But we need to be providing help in delegations. We need to be providing help in terms of data. We need to be providing help in terms of coordination with our local business associations like the Chamber of Commerce and others. And so I think that this motion basically encompasses all of that in one place. And I think you'll see it being adopted right across this province, probably across this country going forward. And I'll leave it to the floor if there's any questions or comments, but I think it's generally pretty self-explanatory. Councillor Kungl.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Are we seeing any similar type of review or positioning by AMO as a policy body?
So we haven't as of yet, and we do have some common places that we sit between Big City Mayors and AMO. So I expect that we'll start to see more. Our chair of Big City Mayors, one of the calls that she's making on our behalf is to AMO, and we'll see what their position is. It's also FCM. One of our Big City Mayors is actually an FCM is it president, something like that. So the chair or president, I don't know what it's called. So the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is also already outreached as well, but we don't have the information back from them, what they're doing to match what we're talking about. The interesting thing, I think, is we're seeing more from the US now in terms of conversations being had municipality to municipality, and we're, I think, in a pretty well-positioned place on that. We just adopted a new sister city down in Michigan. I think that pretty well highlights what we believe the U.S.-Canadian relationship look like and the Barrie relationship should look like. So I think you'll see more of that coming from AMO and FCM in the coming weeks. Yep.
A follow-up and sidebar, so, and maybe just in case it's worth kind of reiterating. So we've kind of taken a position on procurement then, have we not, around even how we procure as a city? Or is there anything else we can do or we're looking at from operations as a corporation? And maybe it's fair to go through you to CEO Pros.
Mr. CAO.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Kungl. I think the motion, Councillor Kungl, specifically speaks to procurement. As Mayor Nuttall noted, municipalities are part of those trade agreements. We are barred from giving preferential treatment to local suppliers. I'm sure members of council hear about that regularly. As much as we may wish to do that, we are prevented from doing that. It is those same rules that prevent us from penalizing foreign bodies or foreign entities. The lobbying effort that is going on here is asking the federal and provincial government to perhaps loosen those restrictions to allow us to pivot as need be, with the pending trade war that may or may not happen between the United States and Canada. And if we are given those tools, it will allow this body to set some direction on flexibility and approach to procurement. But predominantly, this speaks to procurement, yes.
follow up, and I don't expect you to have maybe an informed opinion on this, but one thing that comes to mind through that comment, and I'm wondering about, and this is out of my purview, of course, but from a corporation standpoint, sometimes when we're getting kind of quotes on different items and they're good for so many days, are we actively looking at a quote system or a protectionistic approach to hold the line on a price point in case there becomes kind of a demand for services to a more limited body of suppliers starts to inflate our costs? And does that type of approach exist in practice in general when we're looking at procurement and or aspects of development that we are purchasing for?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Kungle. Yes, and depends, and maybe. Through many of our procurement processes, certainly for longer-term procurement, we do look for cost protection, inflation protection, and members of council will be well aware that we saw accelerants on that coming out of COVID, and that was challenging for our relationships with our vendors who had locked into a longer-term price, but were facing inflationary pressures. To be quite frank, I think this situation is so fluid that any sort of anticipation of what tomorrow looks like is probably not grounded in reality. So I think through the lobbying effort that's going on here, we are attempting to equip ourselves with the tools we need to operate in the moment with the best interest of our individual communities, but certainly with an eye to the broader community and how we can move in a way that is effective and sends a clear message. Now, I say all that recognizing I might get an angry tweet from the President of the United States tomorrow, you never know. But I think the intention is to deploy as many tools as possible to municipalities to allow them to protect their employers and to protect their pocketbooks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last follow-up, just because it is so fluid, I'm assuming some things might be point in time and then just evolving, but if there's anything that really puts us at risk or changes the dynamic of our purchasing power or costs, would that be something staff would just proactively bring to finance and responsible governance as kind of a heads up on what we're seeing as a trend with any type of financial impact around also our investment planning? I'm assuming we're well positioned, but I don't know or fully appreciate if we're going to see some type of again, not having a magic 8 ball, but we've got a positive rating, but again, we're heavily invested and that has served us well. But if we see any type of impact short or midterm over the next year, I'm assuming, will that just come back in the reporting that will already come as kind of a mid-year, I'm assuming, or into the next year's budget? Or would there be kind of a proactive pull or flag just around what you might be seeing as a shift that we should be aware of?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Kungle. I think on those instances, Councillor Kungle, Council could and should anticipate variances should we see headwinds that are unanticipated. But I would also expect that we will report back to this body probably several times, hopefully as our future becomes clearer.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle. Any other questions? Councillor Corser?
Just a question about the urgency. I know that watching the news, as I'm sure most of us have been, the snap decisions that have been made recently by our neighbor. Would this impact, if tariff decisions were made of a snap decision, are we in a position to follow up quickly on that? Because what needs to come back to council, and I'm just wondering timelines, I could be maybe being a little too dramatic, but because the next few weeks that we are not going to be in council, will there be need to address anything in council if something is a snap decision and it's implemented right away?
Sorry, just CA approach just before. The request here is to allow us. Right, like let's pretend that tomorrow, bam, a tariff gets levied. We actually can't do anything because the trade agreements are not at our level. So what this is asking is for us to be able to be part of a change. There would have to be likely on a on this subject, there would have to be at least a vote of cabinets at the federal and provincial level. Then they'd have to stipulate the rules. They'd have to pass, like, it would take time for us to be able to be in a position to say yes to something, but it would also take time to understand what that suite of things would be. And I don't believe there would be any changes made without it coming back to council, is my understanding on this. I don't think that the CAO can unilaterally go, okay, I'm now changing A, B, C, and D inside of our procurement bylaws going forward. But please confirm, Mr. CAO.
Mayor Nuttall, through you to you, that is correct. No changes would be made without coming back to this body. And we don't expect anything that we could take up in days or weeks. To Mayor Nuttall's point, I imagine it'll be a much longer runway than that.
Okay, it's just world seems to be changing pretty quickly lately. Thank you.
On the municipal level, we're always at the bottom of the pecking order, so it's the way it goes. Any other questions or comments around the table? I'm seeing none, so all those in favor? It carries. Do we have any other direct motions, Deputy Mayor?
Through myself, moved by myself, second by Councillor Congo, pursuant to Section 7.1 of the Procedural Bylaw 2019-100 as amended, permission to be granted to introduce a motion without notice concerning Hampson Joint Land Analyst Study.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kungle, that pursuant to Section 7.1 of the Procedural Bylaw 2019-100 as amended, permission be granted to introduce a motion without notice concerning Hampson, a joint land analysis study. And this is a motion without notice, so there's no debate on it. So I'm just going to call the vote. All those in favor? And it carries. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kungle, that city staff initiate a notwithstand procurement process to retain Hampson Consultant to continue the work with the city and the provincial facilitator built on the initial findings through the joint needs study with budget allocated up to 200 funded through the reinvestment reserve.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kungle, that staff initiate a non-standard procurement process to retain Hampson Consulting to continue to work with the city and the provincial facilitator, building on their initial findings through the joint needs analysis study with a budget allocation of up to $200,000 funded through the reinvestment reserve, that this work be undertaken in phases, and the first phase will include the following: identifying and delineating additional lands outside of the City of Barrie boundaries in the townships of Springwater and Ormondante that could address the requirements of the address the requirements of the City of Barrie, Township of Springwater, and Township of Ormondante as set out in the Stage 2 Joint Needs Analysis Study, and further assessment of the City of Barrie's infrastructure and service capacity to support the identified 930 developable hectares from the Stage 2 Joint Needs Analysis Study. That staff report back to General Committee on the additional studies and phases of work once complete. Any questions or comments from members? I have Councillor Rietma, and then I have Councillor Corser, and that's it. So we'll start with Councillor Rietma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to start off with. The first phases of this work were done by the county, as I understand it. Wasn't the county, and then it was also Oro and Springwater in the city?
No, the first phases of the work were conducted by all four, in the sense that the City of Barrie, the County of Simcoe, the Township of Ormondante, and the Township of Springwater. At the request of the facilitator, the County of Simcoe was asked to be the body that retained on behalf of the four. And then we proceeded with that first phase. Obviously, the County of Simcoe is there because of their lower tier municipalities, the Township of Springwater and the Township of Oromondante. But it wasn't at the behest of the County of Simcoe, it was all four.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And the next part of my question would be, are those parties still involved in this process?
Mr. CAO.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Ribma. Councillor Ribma, while I anticipate that the parties will continue to be engaged, as members of council are aware, this body and the other bodies passed resolutions back around Christmas. It was very clear that Barrie City Council was adopting a move forward position and was awaiting the framework for the stage 3 work from Hempson with some specific criteria. As you are aware, I wrote a memo to council a few weeks ago indicating that we had the framework for stage 3 and it was being circulated to the partner municipalities. Both Springwater and Oro have passed resolutions related to the stage 3 work. It is my advice and my opinion that the motions that they have adopted probably answers many questions for them. It does little to meet the needs of Barrie City Council and the City of Barrie. And that the stage 3 work that they were proposing to cost share on was in a very minor way with a series of questions to be answered prior to actually undertaking the meaningful stage 3 work. It's my recommendation to this council through this motion that the City of Barrie on its own secure stage 3 work from Hempson Consulting for the purposes of the City of Barrie to work and continue to work with the provincial land facilitator to answer the questions around what land do we need, where do we need it, how do we service it, and some of that information will be shared with those municipalities, is my expectation.
Okay, just to be clear then, Claire, it's this 200,000 in this study is being done on behalf of the City of Barrie and we're not partnering with Oro or Springwater. That's correct, I take it.
That's correct.
Right?
Mr. CEO, you want to?
Yes, Mayor Nuttall, I just wanted to confirm for Councillor Ribma. The work would be our work. The product of that work would be owned by the City of Barrie. We may choose to share some of it as we see fit, but the work product would be the City of Barrie's work product.
Okay, I understand.
Just before you continue with your next question, just to confirm, it would also be shared with the provincial land facilitator. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. This work would be done in conjunction with the provincial land facilitator, correct?
Thank you. And I guess that leads me to a next question, and that is, what is the role of the facilitator in this? Usually a facilitator facilitates between parties, but in this case, it's only the City of Barrie. So what is the role of the facilitator?
If I can, Mayor Nuttall, I think it is the expectation of the facilitator that he will continue to have a role. The dialogue and communication is expected to continue. The challenge is through the 3 municipalities, really excluding the county, who is sort of a stakeholder but not really participating, is we could not agree on what the stage 3 work was. But I had very clear marching orders from this council as to what was expected from stage 3. This will allow the City of Barrie to get the information we need. It will continue to inform the process. It will continue to inform the provincial facilitator, which is a body of the province. And it is, as I understand it, his expectation that he will continue to use that to inform his conversations with Springwater and Oro Medonte.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one other concern about this, and that is that we're limiting, because it's now our study, we're limiting ourselves to Springwater and Oro Medonte. And it seems to me that if we are serious about finding the best, the most appropriate, the best serviced, easily serviced, all those kinds of criteria that we're looking for land, we should be looking all the way around the city, not only in just 2 municipalities, but also in Essa and Innisfil. I'm sure we're just making 2 more enemies, I'm sure, but it seems to me that we should not be at this stage of the game saying we're only limiting ourselves to this area, because we may be ending up making a big mistake because we could have got land somewhere else that would be much better suited. So I'm just wondering what the thinking is to just, at this point, early in the stage, just to limit ourselves to those two municipalities when I think we really should be looking all the way around.
CEO Prouse.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Ripma. Councillor Ripma, while I may agree with all of your comments, I think the challenge in this process is the provincial land facilitator was indeed dispatched by the province. He was given his marching orders by the minister, and he was asked to engage with Barrie, Springwater, and Oro-Medonte on the question of land needs in northwest Barrie, I guess technically. That is his mandate, and nothing else is part of his mandate. So it doesn't mean that can't change. It doesn't mean that this body can't lobby the province to expand that mandate. But as of today, his marching orders include just that question.
Mr. Mayor, I really think we should be looking at other municipalities. We should be looking all the way around the city. And I can't support the motion as it stands. I think we're just tying our hands needlessly and precluding good planning, I think. So I would be happy to amend it to include all the municipalities adjacent to us. But on this basis, I don't think it's supportable.
Mayor Dolan, call Councillor Rietman, not me. Councillor Corser.
Two things, I guess. Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to I guess CEO Prouse would be the best. This seems to be answering the questions. Is this preemptive, maybe a bit, because are we not expecting the fulsome report back that we requested at Christmas?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser. Councillor Corser, this council and the other two councils passed a resolution around that Christmas window anticipating stage 3 work. So you received the stage 2, which included the presentation. Stage 3, the framework was done by Hempson. It included much of what is in this motion in front of you, anticipated delineating property and starting to sort of envision scenarios. I think, without speaking for them, it's probably fair to say the other two municipalities could not get to agreement on what the stage 3 work could look like to our satisfaction. We were in agreement with the framework produced by Hempson. Again, much of it is mirrored in this motion. There were other add-ons from the other municipalities which we believe do not move us forward. In fact, they potentially move us backwards. So the decision was that we would engage Hempson, or at least bring to council the request to engage Hempson to get the work done that council asked for in your resolution back around Christmas. So there isn't another report coming unless somebody commissions it. And my recommendation is that this council commission the next stage.
Yeah, got it backwards there. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Nuttall, another question. The facilitator was given his marching orders to look at Springwater and Oro-Medonte. Was it the province that gave him those orders? Who exactly instructed the facilitator to look only in Oro-Medonte and Springwater?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser, at the risk of relying only on my memory, Councillor Corser, there was a public presentation, a series of public presentations, I believe, by Mayor Nuttall. There was at least a request from Oro-Medonte to the minister to actually assign the provincial land facilitator to address what we believed was a need, an existential threat for the city of Barrie. I think it's fair to say Oro-Medonte was not maybe sold on the idea. So they actually asked for the provincial land facilitator. I'm not sure if we officially asked for the facilitator, but I know Mayor Nuttall had made his thoughts public. So the province's response to that, where we had a divergence of opinions, was to dispatch the facilitator. What his actual marching orders are, I think only probably he can tell you. But effectively, it was to engage with Springwater, Oro-Medonte, and Barrie, and later the County of Simcoe, to see if there wasn't a local solution to the land needs problem.
Just to add to that, I think I would agree with Councillor Rietma that it would be good to look at 360 around the city to look at different areas, because I've thought that Essa Township actually looked pretty sparkly, but not to make any enemies, but I thought Essa Township looked in industrial land. I was kind of eyeballing that, so I just thought that maybe it would be good to stretch our horizons a bit, if at all possible. But if the facilitator has been instructed by the province, then depending on where it's limited to, I just wondering the legalities around that. How much say we would have for that sort of conversation.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Courser. I'm not sure it's a matter of legalities, Councillor Courser. But I think if the facilitator was here, he would say it's just not part of his purview at this time. It doesn't mean that his instructions can't change. This body can write to the minister and ask them to consider other options instead of this or in addition to this, and nothing prevents you from doing that. So I would just tell you, having had these conversations with the facilitator, he's got a specific scope, and that's what he's responsible for reporting back on.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and through you to CAO Prowse. And I'm just for clarity, the original proposal was due to the proximity to our infrastructure, correct? That's how it come about. Was, when you look at Oro-Medonte or Springwater, we have pipes right at the border that's ready to go. So it was about, more economic and quicker, and that's why I think we were in the locations we're in, and we didn't do a 360. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Deputy Mayor Thompson. Deputy Mayor Thompson, I think for sure that's at least one of the compelling reasons. When you look at the layout of the City of Barrie, I think there are a couple of things that come into play. The balance of the city, how we're laid out, and the proximity of our infrastructure along that northwest corridor. But I think it's also fair to say a number of other issues sort of came up through the process and continued to make what we thought was a much stronger business case for the need. That need then evolved to include Springwater, opportunities there, discussions around Little Lake. This was certainly an evolution of a piece, but I think where did it start? Yeah, proximity to pipes and services right at our northwestern boundary.
Perfect. Thanks for that. And I will be supporting this. I think the Hampson report in phase 2, lays out exactly the need. So, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. And I think we've got to this stage, and I think we need to move forward, as it's very important to move our city forward. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to go to Councilor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll be supporting the motion for these specific reasons. The motion is clear, and it's goal focused. It's got a goal in mind, and it's got a plan to get there. And I don't say this from a moral high ground. I say that as someone who sometimes doesn't have clarity, wants to do a lot in Ward 9, wants to do a lot with different projects, comes to you and goes, what about this, what about this? And you say, focus. This embodies that focus on a city level. And so that little anecdote was my personalization of that. Mayor Nuttall, you were around, I wasn't around for this. It's already hard enough to do one boundary adjustment. Case in point, 2009, 2010 Innisfil. It's even harder to do 2 boundary adjustments. Case in point, right now. And so one of the earlier comments from one of my colleagues is, should we maybe then go forward to try to do it on 4 fronts? That goes against what I started my comments with. Focus, have a plan, and the fact that we're already at the point that we are shows it's not that easy. It doesn't mean it's it doesn't mean if we focus on 2 fronts that it's any less of a win for City of Barrie residents or the county. It doesn't mean we're leaving good options on the table. It just means we're being purposeful about the outcomes that we want, and not either trying to bite more off than we can chew, not ending up and not getting the outcome to happen. I'm a little bit perplexed about the kind of the comments of like, why don't we just, you know, pull the handbrake on a train that's moving in a fast direction, because again, there's the experience of having the 2009-2010 one with Innisfil and the one we're doing now. So in the best case scenario, the reason I just went through that explanation, those comments I just made weren't understood. In the best case, giving the benefit of the doubt. In the worst case scenario, the comments accidentally obfuscate the situation. Either of those outcomes are just not good for the end objective, which is we have a plan. This motion gets us closer to that, and I'll be supportive of it for those reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I too support it. I think it's important that the momentum's already been started, and I don't think it would be prudent on us to press the pause button, because now all of a sudden the other two parties involved don't seem to want to continue to participate, especially from a financial perspective, because who knows what would happen to it if we did press the pause button. I understand why Oro is probably wanting to not participate, because they are getting it from both sides, because they're going through the same process in their northern border too with the City of Aurelia, which I just recently found out about. And I think it's key that we continue the momentum and continue this and see what phase 3 comes up with. Maybe phase 3 won't give us the information that we were hoping, or maybe it will be continuing to move forward. But to Deputy Mayor Thompson's point, one of the things that were identified during one of the largest developments, well, actually the largest development in my ward outside of the Salem area, was at Mapleview and Essa, and that's where we, through that process, realized that the Mapleview trunk line only had about 10,000 more units available. And even now, the Salem project is going to be using 2,400 of those units for the first 7 years. So there is limitations on that Mapleview line. Although obviously, yes, S is just on the other side of 27, very attractive land, let's say. But when it comes to trying to service it, I'm not sure how we'd be able to service it without potentially having to spend $100 million on another main trunk line coming across to service that, whereas the other areas that are being looked at appear to be ready to be able to be serviced almost immediately. So definitely the direction that we're going does seem to make the most sense when you look at it from an infrastructure logistical standpoint. So I do appreciate this motion and definitely will support it.
Thank you. Any other comments from members of council? As I mumbled. Okay, I'm going to speak this a little bit. Carl, is there any way that we can put the layers on this? Councilor Morales, I'm like stealing your style right now. Okay. For like, yes, perfect. So it isn't difficult to see that we have a lopsided city. And the cost of transit goes up in that scenario. And if you don't believe me, then see the fact that we just moved a transit terminal 3 kilometers to the south, 2 kilometers south, whatever it is, because it's closer to the geographic center of the city. The cost of the road clearance goes up. The cost of taking care of parks goes up. The cost of everything goes up because it's not efficient to grow in one direction when all of your city services are built in the other. If we just focus on going south, that's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. The other piece I think that it's really important to realize is how difficult it is to find any land to do anything in North Barrie. So if the hospital needs to expand, what happens? They got to go up. And what's the cost of going up versus the way that they've traditionally done it? A lot more. And even if they go up, they've got one more shot at it. And we have healthcare services right now looking for places to go, and there's nowhere to go. And I will say publicly that I have called the mayor of Oro-Medonte, I've called the mayor of Springwater and asked for help on these healthcare services to no avail. The healthcare services are not Barrie services. The hospital is not a Barrie hospital. It's a regional center that is stuck right now. And the ancillary services that we're constantly looking at have nowhere to go. That's what we're like this is pretty well an emergency situation in terms of having land capacity in the north end of the city of Barrie. I think it's really important that we step back from the, well, now it looks like we're going to get land. Maybe we can do better if we go to the south. I was a councillor in the south when we went through this. It's not fun. Councillor Riepma, Councillor Courser, Councillor Kungl, it's not fun. The reality is, when you're in a growing city like the city of Barrie, it's going to happen. And we had there's actually an email that got sent to me, I don't know, let's say a year ago. It's probably longer than that. And it was a piece of mail correspondence from 1993 that was sent out by the Reeve at the time. And guess what land back then they identified as being part of a future City of Barrie growth annexation? The stuff we're talking about today. Also on there was the Innisfil land, but that came in a decade ago, actually 15 years ago. So this isn't, something that's happened overnight. We've been working on this for 2.5 years or 2 and a bit years now. And it was identified as a possibility 32 years ago. And if we went to the province and said, actually, you know what? Let's go a little bit west. We're going to go into Essa, and let's go a little bit south, and we're going to go into Innisfil. The province would say, you know what? You don't know what you want. How are we supposed to support what you want? And let's shut this thing down. And so, if that's the feeling, I think that what you're actually saying is you just want it shut down. I don't think it's actually about Innisfil. I don't think it's actually about Essa. I think it's like, hey, this is scary. There's things being proposed on our border in the north end right now, right opposite Councillor Courser's ward, inside of Springwater. It's upsetting residents. It's not under our control. And it's scary because it creates, I would say, instability in those areas. And so as we move forward, I think we've committed to a path. To press eject on that path at this point would be to end a look for more land. And to end the look for more land would be to leave us in a position where, yes, we're going to bring on a net 280 acres or 380 or 300 acres, in southwest Barrie over the next 2 to 3 years. But we're developing 150 plus a year right now, assuming tariffs don't kill that pace. And so that just buys us 2 years. And so what we actually be doing is we'd be saying, shut it down. We're not going to proceed with land for employment. We're not going to proceed with land for more housing. We're not going to do what we set out to do. So I would ask that we do continue forward. I think there's obviously a blip here, a breath, if you will, because of an election. Nothing's going to happen in the election. Nothing should happen in the election in terms of our border. And we should take that time to get more information and start the work on phase 3 and understand what our full capacity is in each of the areas that's been identified, and understand what the natural heritage features are in each of the areas that have been identified, and work with the facilitator and work with Hempson on the land that we've identified. So I will go straight to the vote at this point, but I think it's a pretty clear cut. If we decide to go in a different direction, then we should just shut her down altogether. So I'll call the vote on all those in favor of the direct motion. And it passes. Do you have another direct motion?
I do not. Councillor Kungle.
Councillor Kungle has another direct motion. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Thompson that pursuant to Section 7.1 of Procedural Bylaw 2019-100 as amended, permission be granted to introduce a motion without notice concerning authority to execute a partner merchant agreement, Adian Canada Limited and Adian HV.
It's moved by It's moved by Councillor Kungle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Thompson, that pursuant to Section 7.1 of Procedural Bylaw 2019-100 as amended, permission be granted to introduce a motion without notice concerning authority to execute a partner merchant agreement, Adjournment Canada Limited and Adjournment HV. Any questions or comments other than how do you pronounce that name? None. All those in favor? It's approved.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Thompson that the Chief Administrative Officer be granted authority to execute a partner merchant agreement and related documents with Adyen Canada Limited and Adyen HV as the city's ultimate beneficial owner of the agreement, as defined by Adyen and in accordance European financial regulations for the provision of services related to FIN 2024-087P regarding marina management software.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by it's moved by Councillor Kungle and seconded by Deputy Mayor Thompson. The authority to execute a partner merchant agreement with Adyen Canada Limited and Adyen HV, that the Chief Administrative Officer be granted authority to execute a partner merchant agreement and related documents with Adyen Canada Limited and Adyen HV as city's ultimate beneficial owner of the agreement as defined by Adyen in accordance with the European financial regulations for the provision of services related to FIN 2024-087P, the marina management software. Any questions or comments? Councillor Corser.
I'm sure this is going to be a very mundane answer, but through you, Mayor Nuttall, to staff, what brought this marina software issue up? There was a problem with the software that we were using before? Is there certain regulations that needed to be changed?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser, Mr. Hughes may provide additional detail, but I would offer to council that it's a payment software we are introducing to the marina. The original company is a European company. There are requirements around how they deal with their clients through banking. The short order is, as a CAO, I don't have delegated authority to bind the corporation. We rely on the mayor and clerk for that. However, under the banking legislation, they recognize the CAO as an officer inside the corporation. So I can bind the corporation if council gives me the authority. So this would allow us to execute that agreement.
See, I was correct. It was mundane. There you go. No other questions.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. We're going to move into inquiries. Are there any inquiries this evening? Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Through you to Ms. Reed. And I haven't given you a heads up, so I apologize. I normally do if I not to put you on the spot. In communications, you're obviously coordinating a lot of stuff, and I was just doing some math earlier this afternoon, and I reckon we're 75, almost. I think it's 72.4 million we've received in provincial funding in the last couple of weeks. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Deputy Mayor Thompson. Yes, that is correct. We've had, I've kind of kept a running list of some of the announcements we've gotten from the province in the last 10 days or so. So we had 18.5 million announced for Mapleview Road reconstruction, 34.9 million for the McKay water and sewer, 6.3 million times 3 years, so a 19 million for the Heart Hub. And then, so that's a total of 72.4. And then our share of the 3 million encampment and housing money that was spoken to by council earlier tonight.
And if you could just refresh my memory, we received in the housing accelerant money, I believe it was 26 from one and 6 million for a few years on the other, is that correct? Almost 40 million, I think.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall. Yes, that's correct. The Ontario Building Faster Fund was a one-year money that we received, and we would expect to receive that again in future years. And then the HAV money, the Housing Accelerator Fund, was the multiple-year funding.
At the end of this, I'll ask, do you agree? Because it has to be an inquiry and a question, but I'm a returning member. This is my second term, and I gotta say, I remember my speech in my inaugural meeting about this being a team game. You know, whether it's our colleagues around here and, you know, with staff. And I gotta say, you know, Mayor Nuttall, you've taken it where you extended that to our provincial and federal colleagues. And I gotta tell you, it's paying this city dividends. It is really, really working. In my first term, and you know, I was part of it, I can't think of any funding we received in the first term. I know we were the greatest letter writing campaign. I think we were 15 or 16 letters with one response basically saying, no, you can't have what you asked for, and 14 or 15 flat out refusal. It's not even a conversation, not a direction, nothing. So I know, and I hope I'm not taking some of your thunder away from your breakfast tomorrow, because I hope you highlight a lot of this for this community. But yeah, we're moving mountains. And I just wanted to highlight that. It's, you know, for people around the table, the approach we're taking is working. So, Ms. Reid, do you agree?
No answer from Ms. Reid.
Maybe I would just say that from an intergovernmental affairs perspective, we've never seen a week like this or 10 days like this in the 24 years I've been here, or even anywhere near this amount of money. During the time where there was infrastructure money coming forward for building of the fire station and those kind of projects, we saw money for those things. And we've seen transit ISIP money that was a long-term commitment to invest for transit, but nothing to this scope. And I think there definitely needs to be credit to our mayor, who's been working very hard behind the scenes. That we support with the letters and the advocacy that way, but he's doing the lion's share of the work to secure this funding.
I'm really good at asking for money. Can I borrow $5, Councillor Degussy?
If you call it adjournment, I'll give you 10.
I think, sorry, there was just an inquiry from Councillor Degussy. I think the total, if you look at the last 12 months, about 11 months of that, we're at like 105 million-ish, give or take. It's a lot of dough. It's a lot of dough. And it's not just the provincial. I think we need to recognize that. It's also the federal, right? So thank you to both of them. And it's a good place to be. It's a really good place to be. Any other inquiries around the table? We'll move to announcements. Councillor Courser, then Councillor Kungle. Councillor Corser?
I'm sorry. I would just like to congratulate our very own Councillor Rietma for his continued chair for the Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority meeting that was last week. And yeah, he was doing a great job. So yeah, kudos to Councillor Rietma for his continued on re-elected as the chair of the Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority.
Amazing. Thank you, Councillor Corser, and congratulations, Councillor Rietma. Is it 2 more years or one more? Did they do it one at a time, or is it 2-year increments?
It's 1 year at a time, and I think you're limited to 2-year terms, so this will be my last term, last year.
Well, congratulations. Councillor?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just wanted to remind the public and members of council, we've got a nice celebration happening at the Legion on Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock. So while we do have Communities in Bloom meeting for anyone interested here at City Hall at 4 o'clock, I'll be heading down to the Legion. We have, I think, about 18 youth that are competing that submitted for the Legion competition on presentations to research and honor veterans. So thank you to all those across the city around our youth that have opted into that, and looking forward to highlighting those individuals. The other comment I have is, one, it was just nice to see community coming together at the opening of Pickleplex Social Club in Ward 3. If you haven't stepped in that space, whether you pickleball or not, it is a very, very lovely way in which they've taken existing infrastructure, which was the old Sears space, and renovated it into a very interesting recreation business. So welcome people to check that out as a new business that we welcome to Ward 3. And lastly, we were at Heritage Committee last night. A lot of great things happening. I know Claire has an announcement, but I think I can echo on behalf of the accolades from that group with the motion that was passed this evening. I know Claire is getting pulled to other committees. And so while you're still on Heritage, I know we've shifted the role of chair, but definite appreciation from the Heritage Committee for your longstanding support and leadership at that space, and the education and awareness you bring around being a champion for heritage. So thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle. And Councillor Rietma, you're next on the list, so you get to say thank you to them and then the rest.
That's exactly what I was going to do. Just thank you. Thank you for all the thank yous. And just following up on the heritage comment, I will, of course, not be chair of Heritage anymore, but we will be having our Heritage Awards on March the 5th right here at Council. And we have some very interesting winners this year. And yeah, we're having a little reception beforehand. And so stay tuned, and you're all invited.
Thank you, Councillor Rietma. And Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. What kind of triggered this? I wasn't going to have any announcements, but once they started talking conservation, I thought it would only be appropriate as your member on the NVCA to announce a switch in our chair and vice chair also, and because we have the 2-year rule also. Thankfully, basically our chair and vice chair switched roles, which is great for the organization to continue to keep consistency moving through the rest of the term, as there is quite a bit of ongoing things right across the province when it comes to conservation. So I would like to congratulate Jonathan Scott, who is a councillor from the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and he also sits on Conservation Ontario. He is now our chair, and I know he and Councillor Rietma have already connected, so I know there's going to be a continued collaboration between the two CAs, especially in our area where they are so close. And then our previous chair, Gail Little, who's the deputy mayor of the township of Amaranth, has agreed to continue on as our vice chair. So congratulations to both of them. And I would be remiss if I also don't take that opportunity to congratulate and announce that our CAO, Doug Hevener, has retired. Doug has been in the workforce for many, many years, but he did spend the last 7 years as our CAO at the NVCA. And wish him all the best in a much deserved retirement moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Don't think there's any other announcements, so I'm just going to read through a few we have here. I'm pleased to announce that the province has selected Barrie as one of 18 additional municipalities to get a homelessness and addiction recovery treatment hub known as the Heart Hub. The intent of the hub is to connect people with complex needs to comprehensive treatment and preventative services. The location of Barrie's hub is not being finalized. The province's goal is for the new hubs to be operational on April the 1st, 2025. I'm also excited to announce the Barrie Air Show is returning June 7th and 8th, 2025. This year's event is being presented by Pratt Homes and is supported by the County of Simcoe, the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport, the Downtown Barrie BIA, and the incredible event sponsors who make it happen. For more information, you can visit barrie.ca/airshow. The city is seeking input from the community on Barrie's community safety and well-being plan. For further information or to complete the survey, please visit buildingbarrie.ca/community safety well-being strategy. The deadline is February 5th, 2025. February is Black History Month, and the City of Barrie is proud to promote events and programming that will bring awareness to the significant contributions that Black Canadians have made and continue to make to the cultural landscape of our country and our community. For more information, please visit barrie.ca/Black History Month. Celebrate the winter season this February 1st and 2nd with Winterfest. It's going to be a wonderful time. For information, you can visit barrie.ca/Winterfest. And Hello Winter is celebrated throughout the month of February. So for more information on that, barrie.ca/Hello Winter. Our next council meeting or committee meeting is on February the 26th, 2025. And now we're going to go to bylaws. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser. Leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Bill 10 to 15.
I managed to put myself asleep during those announcements. Deputy Mayor Thompson has moved it, and it's seconded by Councillor Corser that leave be granted to introduce the be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bills 010 through 015. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Corser. Leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Bill 16.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Corser. The confirmation bylaw that leave be granted to introduce. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm laughing. The leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be ready first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 016. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Silly hour's over. It's 9:45 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Councillor Rietma, seconded by Councillor Corser. All in favor? It's approved, and we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.